This is Talking to You, and I'm joined by phone with Lucas, and I'm your host, Drew. Today we're going to be doing the preview of the 2019 Canes football season. We're going to talk about the quarterback battle, a month-by-month analysis of the schedule, and our overall thoughts and predictions of the season. So after starting the 2017 season 10-0, Miami has now lost 9 of their last 16 games. But however, there is a lot of optimism going into this season with Manny Diaz as our new head coach. So Lucas, I want to know, what are your feelings going into this season?
Manny Diaz, this year for the Hurricanes, there's excitement. I think excited about the season, but I also got to check myself because it's Manny Diaz's first year as a head coach.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. There's a lot of excitement with how well our defense was this past 2 years. Over the past 2 years, especially with Manny Diaz. So we're really just thinking, hey, if the offense can turn around here, we could be contenders for sure, at least in the ACC.
It's Miami. Miami is always a contender. The
Right.
moment we start going, we're going to be in the top 10.
Right.
People will like us. People say, oh, it's because the Miami bias, or we can say we're not being ranked because of the Miami bias. But if Miami gets going, if Miami beats Florida, if Miami beats Virginia Tech, Miami is actually going into FSU undefeated or with one loss, we're in the contention for a playoff spot.
And I think, obviously, being Miami fans, we're always very optimistic. We know the talent is there. And the coaching, I guess, haven't been able to coach to that talent has been our issue over the past few years. But also, I would say, probably since the late 90s, early 2000s, our issue has been quarterback. So going into this year, we have 3 potential quarterbacks, starting QBs, all very good in their own right, but all unproven. Jarren Williams, who's probably the most accurate of the 3. N'Kosi Perry, who played a lot last year, who might be the most well-rounded. And then, of course, who everyone's gotten excited about is Tay Martell. So, Lucas, who do you think would, give the best chance for the Canes in 2019? And what do you like about all 3 of them? Or what do you like the best about one of them?
That's a really tough question, because I'm excited for all 3. They are all 3 Division I FBS starting quarterbacks. And first and foremost, I believe they're all 4 stars, if not one of them is at least a 5-star. So whatever one, Manny Diaz and Dan Enos picks, they obviously beat out the other 2. They'll give us our best chance. My favorite, going into last year, I was a big Jarren Williams fan because, like I said, he's the most accurate quarterback. But it kind of shifted now. Maybe I'm back to N'Kosi Perry because Perry has an arm. And he did play in that predictable, terrible offense last year. And he was constantly going back and forth between quarterbacks. So Perry couldn't get his feet under him. Now, Tate Martell, that dude is crazy good. But he's probably not the most accurate quarterback. But he does bring the most, if a play breaks down, he can burn you with his legs. He has a good enough arm, but he doesn't have a cannon like Perry. My only concern with Tate Martell is that he could become a Malik Rozier. That's not a bad thing, or that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now Miami fans hate Malik Rozier because of last season, but Malik Rozier did lead us to a 10-win season, did beat Florida State, won our first Coastal. Malik Rozier has a good enough arm, okay accuracy, but he has legs. Maybe Tate Martell is definitely a better version of Rozier, but he's not a polished passer. That's my only concern with Tate Martell.
Right, and obviously, too, when you get that prototypical quarterback that we really haven't seen too often in Miami's history, but you could see Rozier, especially the 2017 Rozier, who was probably the best version of himself until he injured his shoulder, was at least able to extend drives so often by, a 3rd and long, being able to run for that first down. Yeah, it's great if you can have that. It doesn't look like Perry or Williams would be that guy, so that is the one element that Martell brings that the other 2 don't. So we'll see. Honestly, for me too, I think I would be happy with any of them. I just want to see whoever is going to lead this team back to the ACC championship.
Oh, definitely. I think what it comes down to, we don't have access to the practices. Yeah, we could see the videos here and there, maybe a scrimmage here and there, but we don't see what's happening behind the scenes, which is what I mostly care about. Because I think at the end of the day, I think all three of them are having equally good practices. I think what's going to separate them is behind the scenes. If Perry can step up and mature and actually take his job seriously, like going into the study room, actually studying the game a lot more, or actually organizing the players, like, hey, we're going to practice now. I don't care. The coach say practice is over. We're going to do 5 more reps, or we're going to do this thing. Or the only thing I care about is what I think will separate it is if the players, when the players choose a quarterback, when the players revolve around one quarterback, and that's who they look up to the most. That's kind of who I think the quarterback should be.
Right, and actually, I was watching Hard Knocks this week, and James Jones, who's now retired but played for the Raiders, was talking with Antonio Brown, and he was talking about the first year. I believe Derek Carr was a rookie, and Matt Schaub was supposed to be the guy, and there's a preseason game. I think the first preseason game, and Derek Carr is just lighting it up. And to this point, everyone's like, all right, Matt Schaub's a starter. But the players at that moment were like, I mean, come on, it's Derek Carr. And I think literally then they said the next day they named Derek Carr the starter. So, I mean, if the players know who's going to be the guy, and hopefully that's how it just works out, where we all know who the guy is. But we'll see. Obviously, who knows, by the time we get this podcast out, they might already have named the starter. So... with that being said, let's get into the schedule here. So we're gonna do a quick rundown of the schedule. The season opens up only 2 weeks away in Orlando at Camping World Stadium against our in-state rival, the Florida Gators, who we haven't seen since 2013. Last time we saw them was in Miami during the Al Golden era. It was probably Al Golden's biggest win. Featured Stephen Morris, Philip Dorsett making a lot of plays, Duke Johnson, and I think our defense had 5 turnovers that day. But this rivalry has just been filled with so many great games. Thinking back to 2003, when Miami was down 33-10 or something like that, and late in the third quarter, and Brock Berlin brought the team back. Devin Hester had a kickoff return for a touchdown to open the game. There's a Sugar Bowl, a Peach Bowl, just a bunch of really good games in this rivalry. So I'm really excited to see this reignited at least one more time. So, Lucas, what are your thoughts going in this game? How do you think we're going to fare? What are you thinking?
It's arguably our biggest game of the year unless we make it to the ACC Championship and we play Clemson. This game, looking at Florida obviously had an amazing year last year. My only thing going into this game is it all depends on Miami's defense. If Miami's defense can hold Florida to maybe like 14 points going into halftime, because at the end of the day, our offense has to do at least 1 or 2 good drives. But if the offense can sustain some drives, get a touchdown or 2, make us in the game, the defense can definitely hold its own. I mean, going into the game, I was doing a little research. Florida, their biggest question mark is their offensive line. Well, Miami's front 7 is one of the best in the nation. It's all up to our defense.
Yeah, I would agree, especially being the first game of the year is going to probably favor the defense a little bit more. But it's going to take some time for both offenses to get clicking. So I'd give the favor a little bit to the defenses, especially being how good they are. But Miami is at a slight disadvantage. They have, whatever the case may be, Miami's going to have the less experienced quarterback. Felipe Franks, this will be, I guess, really going into his third season playing quarterback for Florida. So whatever mixed feelings his own fans or the media has about him, he definitely has more experience over any Miami quarterback.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, they might have the advantage just in that, and we'll see. Obviously, Dan Mullen's good offensive mind, so it'll be a challenge for sure. I agree though too. If we don't force turnovers like we did back in 2013, I don't know. We could be LSU all over again. So let's get into the rest of the schedule then. looking into September, we have our first conference game in Chapel Hill against North Carolina. And then we'll have our home opener on the 14th against Bethune-Cookman, and then Central Michigan following them a week later. So, what do you think of our September? Right now, it doesn't look like it'll be too bad, but what do you think?
Oh, September. Definitely time to recover from that Florida game. If we win, great. We have an off day. We have a bye week to get our team to make to whatever feelings we had. They can be expelled. If we lose, same thing. They are whatever happened. We can expel that feeling. Obviously, North Carolina, they don't have as much talent as Miami, and I definitely think Manny Diaz is going to get his squad at least defense. Whatever happened, defense is going to be hyped. Now, this is the stretch of games where whoever our starting quarterback is will need to regroup and actually take steps forward in our offense. I mean, Bethune-Cookman, we're going to see all three quarterbacks play. Central Michigan, it's going to be a tougher opponent than Bethune-Cookman. Not as strong as North Carolina, but it could be a trap game. But I don't expect it. I expect Miami to play close the first quarter or two and then take it over.
Yeah, I'd agree there. So then after that Central Michigan game, we have a bye week. And then October 5th, we have our third of 5 straight home games against the Hokies of Virginia Tech, followed by Virginia, which is on a Friday night, and then Georgia Tech on the 19th. And then after that, the last weekend in October is against the Pitt Panthers. So, Lucas, any games there that look interesting in particular?
Well, Georgia Tech, that one's pretty much another guaranteed win. The only reason is because they're switching up their entire offense. They're switching from the triple option to now, I believe, a spread. I believe it's spread. And that's going to take some time. The quarterback at Georgia Tech is like some 5'8", or 5'10" dude who only completed like 3 passes a game. So that offense is a huge train wreck. I mean, it could have some legs, but Georgia Tech's offense is not going to be anything to be scared about. Vatech, Virginia, there's going to be a trap game there. I do unfortunately think we're going to lose one of those. The game I'm worried about the most is Virginia. I don't feel worried about Vatech. Virginia, they have a good offense, and I'm worried about them.
Yeah, we were at the last game Virginia played in Miami, and they played Miami really tough up until about probably 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. They had like a 2-touchdown lead middle of the third quarter until our defense had a pick six. Jaquan Johnson brought one back to the house. So yeah, that I definitely agree that could be a trap game. And then too, I'm really worried about the Pittsburgh game. Pat Narduzzi always has a very tough defense. Playing up in Pittsburgh late October is going to be cold. Obviously, 2 years ago we lost our undefeated season to them in Pittsburgh. So definitely that one is a little scary too. So now let's get into November, the last stretch of the season, and with maybe not the Florida game, but probably the biggest game of the year up in Tallahassee. So Lucas, what are your thoughts going into the Florida State game?
It's Florida State Miami. No matter if one team is going like and has not won a game, it's Florida State Miami. I mean, you will always take this game seriously. It's the game of the year for both teams. It's the rivalry of the year. To be honest, I think Florida State's gonna have another bad year. Willie Taggart. I mean, I used to work at University of South Florida, where Taggart was the head coach. Great offensive mind, but cannot play defense. I mean, yeah, they do have an amazing running back, Cam Akers. Again, the offensive line is not good. They did lose Francois, but they did bring in Alex Hornibrook, which he has beat Miami two years in a row in a bowl game. But he's not going to start. It's going to be James Blackman. I mean, yeah, he's a ton of experience, but I'm not scared of him. I definitely think Willie Taggart is over his head at Florida State. I think he's going to have another terrible year, and he's going to get fired.
Wow, strong prediction. Yeah, I'm worried about the Florida State game. Yeah, so Cam Akers and Travis Etienne, definitely the top 2 running backs, I would say. in the ACC. So Akers, I mean, he really scares me. He ran over us really the last 2 years. So those two I'm really worried about, or at least Akers I'm really worried about. Blackman, the offensive line, I agree, not so much. But we'll see. Florida State always plays us tough. So that can really be anything. And then after the Florida State game, we're going to be home for Senior Day against Louisville. And then we have, I think, a 2-week break. And then we play at the old Orange Bowl site at Marlins Park against Florida International, against the coach who created the last national championship team at Miami, Butch Davis. And then we end the season at Duke. So, Lucas, any other thoughts on those 3 remaining opponents?
The FIU game is the first game that comes to my mind. That's another cakewalk game. That's a game where I expect maybe our starting quarterback to play a series or 2. Then we take it over with our backups. And that's a game that I definitely think it could be good. It's like second half of the year. It's toward the end. We're preparing for a bowl season. That can also we can have our players just prepare for our younger players who hasn't seen much playing time. That's probably an interesting venue. Yeah, it's the old side of the old Orange Bowl, but it's like Mullins Park. So interesting environment. Throw them out in the fire, and just get some mileage under their feet to get them ready. The Duke game, that needs to be a revenge game. Coach Cutcliffe always coaches a good team. They always coach a well. He doesn't have as much talent as Miami, but you can bet your ass that he will always have a well-disciplined team. So it's going to be an interesting game. That's the type of game that can either make or break our season. That's kind of how we always are. Like around that time, we're going high, and then we play one of these trap games. And lastly, going to Louisville, Senior Day. Come on, Louisville, the 4-10. They're going through a major rebuild. I'm not worried about Louisville. Maybe for the first quarter, then other than that, I think we should definitely run the table against Louisville.
All right, so Lucas, now looking back over your thoughts on the season, obviously opening up with Florida, going to North Carolina, then having the 2 non-conference easy ones, and then getting in the conference schedule with a tough October, and then Florida State, and then wrapping up with a little bit easier of a schedule. What do you think we'll do those first 12 games? How do you think we'll fare in the regular season?
As a fan, like I said before, I think we're going to go 12-0, make it to the playoffs, win that championship. But being realistic, it pains me to say this, like maybe 8-4. Kind of like that's kind of what everyone's thinking too. That's what I think. Probably a loss to Florida. Probably a loss to either Virginia Tech or Virginia. Probably a loss to either Duke or Pitt. And then maybe somewhere there's going to be another loss that we could trip ourselves in. That's realistically where I see us. It's Manny's first year as a head coach. He's going to make lots of mistakes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you there. I think I'll be a little bit more optimistic at 9-3. But the thing is, it just depends on the quarterback play and the offense. I think the defense, we know what we have. We know that they'll keep us in games. I think they'll be a top 10 defense again. But from the offense perspective, we have the weapons. It's just, will the quarterback play be enough? Can the offensive line hold up? So that's really it. I think we could really go anywhere from 7-5 to 12-0. I think you're right. All right, Lucas, any last thoughts heading into this year?
It's going to be a fun ride. We need to have honest expectations of ourselves. We need to enjoy the process. Like, enjoy our defense. And if we lose a couple games, please don't get mad. It's Manny Diaz's first year as a head coach. And just take it as a process. Take it as a slight reset. Like, we're still going to compete in the ACC. Hopefully, we don't throw Manny Diaz in the bus if he does not meet our expectations.
All right, and that should about do it. Just want to thank you all for tuning in to Talking to You. This is Drew, your host, signing off.